So why are these speakers being called the Holy Grail of electrostatic speakers? So the story is that Mr. Popori himself started out around 30 years ago repairing electrostatic speakers in Europe of different manufacturers for customers that had problems with their electrostatic speakers. And throughout this journey, he had torn down and repaired and replaced electrostatic components. And so he learned what the failure points were. He learned what the shortcomings were of the speakers. And he decided to set out to design his own electrostatic speaker, which has evolved over the years. And actually, there is a 20-year-old pair of the prototypes that a customer has that are still playing today, 20 years later, with no repairs. So these things are really reliable. And I can't say the same about electrostatic speakers that I played with in the past, because I used to own the very well-respected Quad ESL 63s, and I absolutely love those speakers. I mean, they didn't have the dynamics, they didn't have the bass, but the frequency response that was there was just phenomenal. The thing is that every so often, the panels, and I believe in that model there were 4 different panels, one of the panels would go bad, and I would have to bring it to a repair place, and it was expensive, and it was a big problem, and I ended up getting rid of them and going with a point source speaker, which you can see in the background here, which is the TAD CR1. And I never thought that there would be a speaker that would tempt me away from the TAD CR1. And what makes that speaker so special is that it's a beryllium mid-range and a beryllium tweeter that's one inside the other. So it's a coincident design, and it presents a true point source. And also the way that TAD and their parent company developed this vapor deposited technology, and they spent millions of dollars using a vapor deposition chamber and vaporizing beryllium. And the beryllium settles on a copper cone for the mid-range and the tweeter, and then they dip that in acid, and the acid eats away the copper cone, and what you're left with is an eggshell thin coating of beryllium. And beryllium is a fantastic material because it's able to damp resonances, and it also has great breakup characteristics well out of the audio band. And these speakers are fantastic, and they sound like quad speakers except with bass and dynamics. And it's funny because I mentioned that to Andrew Jones, the rock star of speaker designers, and he laughed and he said, "Oh, that's funny because I actually happen to still own a pair of Quad ESL 57s. And when designing the TAD reference series, he was kind of going for that as a reference for the mid-range anyway. I really never thought that there was a speaker that I was going to like better than this incredible point source speaker in the TADs. But I started hearing about the Popori Acoustics and people describing them as a modern-day Sound Lab. And I've always loved Sound Lab. A good friend of mine used to own Sound Labs, the A1s and then the U1s, and I always loved the sound, and I considered buying them, but I live in New York City, and we don't have the kind of space here that people might have in other places, and I don't have like a dedicated room. And so the idea of getting a massive speaker that was 7, 8, 9 feet tall and extremely wide was just wasn't going to work for me. And so I dreamed of owning a Sound Lab, but I never actually did it. And so when I heard Audio Junkie, who has a great YouTube channel, I encourage you to check out, when I heard him and some other people describe these as a modern day Sound Lab, man, my ears perked up and I started wanting to know more about these. And then when Ralph Karsten called them the Holy Grail of electrostats, man, I was almost sold without even hearing them. And then Ralph actually got to hear them, and he called them damn impressive. So that gave me the kind of the courage to bring them into my sound space and listening to them and decide for myself if they could replace the incredible TAD CR1 speakers that Jay's Audio Lab actually just started reviewing, and Jay thinks that these are the best stand-mounted speaker that he's ever heard. And he's going to do a great series of reviews on them, which I'm really looking forward to. But Man, there's something really special about these Popori speakers. And again, you can see right through them. It's a really interesting design for people that aren't familiar with how electrostats work. Basically, they take a stretched piece of mylar that has metallic particles impregnated in them, and then they attach a high voltage to that panel so that it becomes electrostatically charged. And then they have these wires that you can see in front of here, in front and back, and those wires are what is attached to the positive and negative terminals of your amplifier. And so your amplifier essentially pulls this incredibly thin sheet of mylar film back and forth, and that pushes and pulls the air in your room, creating the compressions and rarefactions that we hear as sound. And man, there's a lot of energy coming out of these. When I put my hand behind these things, you could feel the air moving. I mean, this is a really interesting design, and electrostats are able to move a tremendous amount of air because you've got all this surface area. In this particular model, it's 0.38 of a meter of surface area. I mean, compare that to, a very small amount of surface area in a traditional speaker, and now you know why these are so special. And actually, because the mylar itself has less mass than the air in the room, sees it as a massless design, and it pushes and pulls the air in your room in a way that is really special, incredibly detailed, and the mid-range is it's like you're having an intimate experience with the singer. And I'm not just talking about audiophile recordings, I'm talking about traditional, just regular rock recordings. Right now, I'm enjoying Bruce Springsteen's Tracks 2, which is 7 unreleased albums that they released at this incredible package, and I bought the high-res digital download version of that, and I'm enjoying that tremendously. But Bruce Springsteen is not known for his audio quality, so these are actually coupling the air in the room in a way that I really haven't heard any other speakers are able to present the intimacy and the exciting nature of vocal performances. And the treble as well is fantastic. And electrostatic bass is incredible as well. It's very tight, it's very fast, and interestingly enough, many people that go, and I've heard these at shows, have reported back, oh, they must be using a subwoofer, a hidden subwoofer in the room. And even the Absolute Sound, when they did a show report, wrongly assumed that there was a subwoofer playing in. So these things produce a type and quality of bass that most people assume is from a subwoofer, not a full range panel. And the other interesting thing is that these have no crossover. And when you have a speaker with no crossover, you've eliminated a lot of electrical components from the signal path. And that also leads to, I think, greater transparency and intimacy. And the other really, really interesting thing about this speaker that I think is unique, and I haven't heard of any other manufacturer doing something like this, is that it comes with these foam dampers that are cut specifically to the size of these little panel segments. And what you're able to do is to tune the speakers to your room and listening tastes precisely. And what you do, I'll show you right here, is you take these dampers that are supplied with the speaker and you insert them into the back of the speaker. And what that does is that controls the back wave. And they come with a number of these, and you can play with the positioning and really tune them to your room. It's very interesting, it's very unique, and it really allows you to tailor the sound for the amount of bass that you're getting in the room. You can also tailor the mid-range and treble response to a degree as well. So thanks for spending some time with me and my new Popori WR3s, and consider hitting that subscribe button for more content about these particular speakers and other things in the audio and video world.